Borathung Earthlets, we are in orbit every Wednesday.
You got it.
It's getting shorter and shorter before I up.
Sorry, that was really good. Ooh, okay.
Right, here we go. Right. Borathung Earthlets. Oh no.
Get 2000 AD now. Get to
Borathung Earthlets, we are in orbit every Wednesday. This is the official podcast of 2000 AD. I am your host, Molch-R, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Chloe. Welcome, Chloe. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay, Mulcher.
Oh boy.
Doing okay.
I mean, we're recording this on Monday the 20th. Officially, was it Blue Monday, which I guess you're feeling for particular reasons.
Well, half the country was on fire to begin with, but starting today, the whole thing gets to be, very, very excited to delve deeper and deeper into Mega City 1 being not just the East Coast, but the entire country.
Excellent. Well, as Bad Bob Booth takes over the United States of America, hopefully in orbit every Wednesday will bring you a little relief from the mushroom cloud that's outside your window. Thank you so much, everybody who fed back on our first episode, which was last week. Everyone seemed to enjoy it, which was excellent. Thank you for all the tips. Thank you to the commenter on YouTube who said that they were warming to me. Like, they think you're great, but they're warming to me. As a 40-something mustachioed geek. I was like, oh, thanks. I think
you warming to you, yeah. like a very tall mustached hot water bottle. That
you know what? I've been cold worse. So yes, we are back for our second weekly episode, you know what? What's quite nice about this week is it's a pure 2000 AD week, in that this issue of 2000 AD is the only thing that's out this week from us, and it's Prague 2416, which is can you see that? Is it too bright?
It's kind of making it in there.
Yeah. It's Prague 2416. And following on from last week, reflecting on our judgment of last week's Prague, Chloe. This is kind of the first time that we've done anything like this, where we're reacting to the Prague as it comes out. I mean, how are you finding it so far to kind of look at it and go, well, I need to have an opinion on this week?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of nice because it being a weekly thing, all the stories are really short. You're just getting it in the installments, which is lovely for somebody who has like intense reading ADHD. And so a lot of stories starting to wrap up, and new ones obviously starting next week. This week was the end of Soft. Which obviously, yeah, and we kind of touched on that last week. We touched on Soft a little bit, and this one I think is. I told you pre-recording that I particularly love the end of this because it not only feels very much like a quintessential. Just driving of the nail into the center of what Dredd's about, but it is very quintessentially a Williams Wyatt like wrapping of a story.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where they have this ability to just very gently put the finger on the pulse of the story. You know, it's straightforward. It's but it's not bashing you over the head. And I mean, as always, you know what? I should make clear. Listening to In Orbit every Wednesday, there may well be spoilers. So just in case people haven't picked up their weekly prog yet. But
this is why we need the Klaxon.
Well, yes, that is true. That is true. And more on the Klaxon later in the episode, Earthlets. but you've got that wonderful page back in Judge Dredd's Small House, where Judge Smiley says to Dredd, "We're fascists."
Because we're fascists.
You know, and it's such a startling thing, because so often that is the thing that kind of characters and writers kind of slightly tiptoe around.
Yeah.
But you've got another moment like that in this week's, and it doesn't even involve Dredd. That's what's really nice about this. Is it's Logan, it's Hernandez, the head of Street, who, you know, Logan is just out and out, just telling him how it is. You know, there's no euphemisms, there's no softening. There's, you know, it basically just says that, you know, the law is the day stick, you know, the right to enter their homes at any time, the knowledge that we are watching them, judging them. And even after all this time, there's like moments like that where you're reading a strip that's been going for almost 50 years, and it just smacks you around the head. Yeah, bloody hell.
Yeah. I mean, he says force is what the city understands. It's what's always worked and what always will. And I was like, there it is. Like, like that's exactly that sort of moment where it's saying the quiet part out loud.
Yeah.
And I think that the build up to those things is always the payoff. And I think that like the duo handling this story know exactly how to hit on that without it being too much of a smack in the face. It's because it is valuable when you're dealing with stories in the Judge Dredd universe and what that actually means to say the quiet part out loud, because part of the problem and why these things continue in everyday real life right now is because people don't say the quiet part out loud. So there's ways to do that with tact that work, and my God, they continue to do that. Looking forward to the next bit, you know. Yeah,
it's so apt, you know, for what is happening in the moment. And this story was planned months ago.
Ha 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 ha. You know.
Oh dear. For in this moment, and I think we talked about this last week, you know, it with any kind of literature, with any kind of satire, you do have to, when the world catches up, there's not a time for subtlety anymore. You know, as you say the quiet part out loud. But yeah, it's brilliant, and there's more coming from this particular creative team. Again, shout out to Jake Lynch for doing fantastic work on that. But I wanted to talk about The Out.
You want me to talk about The Out?
We want to talk about The Out.
Gladly.
For those who haven't read The Out yet, I'm holding... I need to get a better light. This is the web shop edition of the first collection with the Marguerite Sauvage cover, which is absolutely stunning. Please do pick this up from the the collection from the web shop. But this latest series, I mean, this is going in places that I wasn't expecting it to. But what's been your reaction to this latest series, Clay?
I mean, it continues to be kind of incredible and bobs and weaves in the only way that Dan Abnett knows how to Dan Abnett. What's really sticking out for me is honestly Mark Harrison. Like Mark Harrison on art, the layouts on this series are absolutely insane. And the way that I put it to you earlier was his backgrounds in particular, like his figure work's stunning, but the backgrounds in particular make my brain itch in a very particular way. And I genuinely think it's because at least for my money, right now he's one of the few artists that I see that can give a proper color meld and like a watercolor effect that you would see in space. I'm sorry, using a digital brush.
Yeah,
I think that's a really difficult effect to get, where it does look very ethereal, very, all over the place, and very vibrant. And yeah, the pages, I think if done by anybody else, would be an absolute mess. But they are a mess in a way that works so well for what the story is and how and the bobbing and weaving that Dan Abnett does, it all just kind of fits together. But also, and I wish people listening could see like my crazy bombastic movements going on here. It's a problem. Shout out to Simon Boland.
Yeah.
Like, who like holds that lettering down. And I think like with pages that are so busy, like you can follow everything so easily. You can everything sticks out in the way that it should, and you get a feel for what's really being said. Yeah. God, what a letterer. You know? I'm a total lettering nerd, so I'm just like holding it down there, you know.
One of the things that really struck me about this is how it feels very much to me as a you know, long-term Squawks Decthargo, is how much Dan is kind of channeling the Durham Red he was writing in the 90s, that kind of slightly William Gibson, Ian M. Banks tinged, you know, just on the first page of this episode, you've got this amazing world-building info dump that is just so immediately rich and ridiculous and over the top. And there's a narrative quality there that really does remind me of Banks, where it's talking about the present in a kind of like the best history books are the ones that enthrall you with the story as much as dazzle you with the facts. And Dan's work for me has always had that kind of feel of history. You know, I imagine quite a few people watching or listening to this will remember, he said, running over the bookshelves, the Terran Trade Authority books. Do you know these?
Yeah.
So basically, if you grew up in the 80s and 90s,
Lord.
in your school art department, these would be on a shelf and they'd be tatty and falling apart. But the Terran Trade Authority handbook stuff, that's what Dan's stuff feels like to me. This kind of this historiosity, if that is a word, behind the world building. If people haven't picked these up, please do. They're absolutely fascinating. I mean, ridiculous, but absolutely fascinating. And you're entirely right about Mark Harrison. You know, you've got photo manipulation in there. You've got watercolors. You've got graphic design. You've got silly little kind of almost O'Neill-like incidental jokes. And
yeah, I can see that.
And they've been working. I mean, I brought up the Durham Red stuff from the 90s. They've been working together since then.
Yeah.
And, you know, and it is fantastic. And so anybody who's not read the Out, absolutely pick up the first collection and dive right in.
It's just a sci-fi good time.
Yeah.
Like it's very purely just a good sci-fi story. It seems so reductive to put it like that, but it also feels like the greatest accomplishment to just call something like a purely great sci-fi story.
Yeah. And I think particularly with kind of American sci-fi comics, you've got to wait for something like this to come along.
Yes.
And you can never be sure if it's going to achieve, you know, it'll look visually stunning, but you can never be sure that it's going to hit the right notes and, you know, have a satisfying story. But with Abnett and Harrison, you're always going to get that. Like there's absolutely no chance that they're going to fluff that, you know. This is their raison d'etre.
Well, I know we keep like coming back to like comparing it to American comics, and I kind of feel bad for just dunking on them constantly. But at the same time, like a lot of American comics, the tension is so high for the entire story. So when you do actually reach what should be the tension point in the story, it doesn't hit quite as hard. And with things like what Dan Abnett in particular is really good at doing is kind of keeping a nice even keel of what's going on. And so when you do hit that tension point, when something happens, you do feel the flux in the writing, in the story, in the dialogue. And so, yeah, it's, I have nothing poor to say about the Out. Like it's just
Well, I think as the show goes along, like we'll focus on different aspects of it rather than kind of cover the entire prog in half an hour, which means we don't really get to touch on anything but the prog or in depth. And we'll come on to other stuff later. But note my pick of last week, Fiends of the Eastern Front, kind of hits a kind of tension-filled quiet point.
Yes.
With this episode, and I went to see Nosferatu on Saturday night, in this big kind of very theatrical cinema in Brixton.
Cinema?
And I beg your pardon?
No, it's cinema.
I wondered how long it'd take before we started taking the piss out of how each other speak.
Yeah, we're gonna have to.
just know the next time you do a yol, I'm hair trigger, mate. Hair trigger.
Please do. I will deeply appreciate that.
But yeah, I went to see Nosferatu at the movies, and I didn't say anything critical because one of my colleagues will probably nail me to a wall if I dare say a bad word about Mr. Eggers. But I think Ian Edgington and Tina Trevelyan kind of capture the stillness of it. That kind of menacing stillness of kind of not necessarily the new Nosferatu, but the old Nosferatu.
Yes.
And the cliffhanger is really nice as well. I like that kind of sudden shock twist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's and again, it's all about the pacing, right? So that little kind of like twist at the end, we don't want to give away too much, but the little shock twist is really handy when everything seems so nice and even and just kind of like And I personally love like the vampire trope of like a vampire that kind of goes into the like I'm gonna play into these stereotypes that you've been made to believe. And in doing that, showing that there is still some humanness stored away in there, despite not wanting to show that or actively rejecting it. It's very fun. It's a very it almost feels like a stopgap without being a stopgap.
Absolutely. In a piece of complete synchronicity, I considering that Oscar Wilde is in this series of Fiends, I went to see the Shutigawa Importance of Being Earnest in the theatre on Saturday as well, and that was
very theater weekend.
I did. I like to stuff my weekends full of cultural stuff and drinking. But that was very panto and very silly, and so it's kind of. It's nice to have a story where you have Oscar Wilde as a protagonist being quite demure and kind of downplayed and not this kind of exaggerated over the top camp person that he often gets reduced to. But yeah, so Prague. Why can I never remember what Prague it is? 2416. Prague 2416 is out now from all good newsagents, comic book stores, and also the 2000 AD app, which you absolutely should download and have. There's loads of great, cool reading lists on there. There's free comics that you can download and have a nice time with. And subscribe to 2000 AD. You get free digital back issues. And if you sign up to the marketing emails, then you get me giving you cool offers like money off vouchers and interesting things. Serious business. Now, last week we mentioned a Klaxon, the potential of a Klaxon. Now, the ones on here are fairly limited. So I think what we need is a poll.
Okay.
Of what should the Thrill-power Klaxon be?
Yes. It's what yes. Very simple answer. I wanted what are the options? What are the options?
Anything you want. Basically anything I can go to our the sound department at work and say, hey, make me this, we can probably go for. So, you know, and anything saucy is out because this is Thrill-power, it's serious business. You know, a whooshing sound, an explosion. What does Tharg the Mighty sound like, you know?
The crunching of a styrofoam cup. I so badly just want either the explosion sound or the rah, rah, rah. Like, do you know I would just be spamming that button every time you say something like cinema?
Well, thank you for coming to In Orbit every Wednesday. This is our last episode.
I think we also need to take a poll as to who gets control over the Klaxon.
we alternate week in, week out until we alienate everybody.
Very different feeling episodes.
So if you've got ideas for what our Thrill-power Klaxon should be, for you know, not abuse like Chloe is suggesting, but
a little bit of abuse.
You know, when something is particularly Thrill-power, we can bring in the Thrill-power Klaxon. And you know what? I completely forgot to mention definite Thrill-power Klaxon for Dave Taylor's cover on this camera. Is awful. It really does not cap my tablet. Absolutely fine. It's wonderful to see him back at the Prague, and with an image of Dredd with what looks like a block war and ice surface and everything, and it's great. And it's exactly the kind of exactly the kind of cover that he just always excels at. That kind of, you know, distance, and one of the great successes of somebody like Ron Smith, I think, on stuff like that. Now we're going to round off on this episode with something that I think needs addressing, because when we were thinking about setting up like a weekly podcast, we were like, you know, every episode needs to have a hook. And, you know, I was talking with my colleague Steve about, you know, what the key stories, what the key characters, you know, how can we bring the world of 2000 AD through and have like really eye-catching visuals and things like that. My erstwhile co-host Chloe went, hottest 2000 AD character, just straight out the gate.
Okay, but I have a reason for that.
Go on.
And now this is a hotly contested thing, because people are like, Chloe, truly, you're a real person. How can you find drawn characters attractive? Are you not human? Can you not look at something and go, yes, that's good, if it was a real thing or if I was a drawn thing? Don't look at me like that.
I'm just giving you enough rope. It's entertaining.
just watching me stringing myself up here. But okay, so this idea for like who's the hottest in 2000 AD came about because of the Christmas Prague.
Okay.
Now, I'm a little bit of a strontium dog nut. If you can't tell by all of for those just listening, there's a lovely Johnny in the background here. There's a Johnny shirt. There's a lot going on, but it's not Johnny, because in the Christmas Prague, I have a certain affinity for dear Archibald Midface McNulty, and I love a character that's given a good sense of humor, but still can come across as really hardened. And I think Midface is a character that has always kind of been written as somebody who's going to give you a boot on the neck if you're on the wrong side, but you're going to get a clap on the back and a good joke if you're sharing the same thing. Now, here comes the problem. Midface has lumps all over his head, not something that you would normally consider attractive. And then Henry Flint comes along, and Henry Flint said, I will change that for you specifically, Chloe. He didn't actually say that, but I like to dream that he did, because I open the Christmas Prague and I go, Lord, I've seen what you can do for other people, and you seemingly have now done that for me. And Uh, and I was very upset and felt personally attacked by the fact that Henry Flint made Midface McNulty a hot character. So, like, it was deeply upsetting and extremely rewarding in one fell swoop. So Midface now gets like top tier for me, which is, God, what a problem.
I mean, who's second on the list?
I couldn't rank them because that hurt my feelings. But yeah, but we're here to be pretty inclusive because I don't have any shame and I'm bad at boundaries. So my number 2, just kind of written down, was Venus Blue Jeans.
I mean, come on now.
I feel like I'm telling on myself with that one. Like, I feel like, I mean, she, you know, it's the, also, can we talk about how, despite being one of like a genuinely like kind of sexist, horrifying concept, how GI doll is just such a cool term. I like.
I mean, that's the Jerry Findlay Day special. Like he just manages the language of that strip is just so perfect.
Oh, it's so good. But like the white mohawk and the like whole GI get of, it's everything to me. I feel very seen in
weird story. My former colleague Kat, who used to be our reprographics person at 2008 for many years, I'd actually met her before I started work at 2000 AD without realizing, because I went along to one of the last Dredd cons, which used to be in Oxford.
Yeah,
and well, it didn't just used to be Oxford; it was at the Oxford Union. So you know, this grand setting of place of highfalutin debate and you know, principle and all this, that, and the other. And she's walking around head to toe in blue paint. She used to have like a mohawk, and I think she dyed it white and everything. And she's walking around with like a fake rifle and everything. So, and at the time I was like, you must be insane. And then I met her and I realized, Kat, we love you, but you were insane. So yeah, it's a hell of a look. It's also very difficult to get blue body paint that doesn't make you look mad.
Yeah, you got to kind of shade all over the place and go crazy with it. I'm waiting for the day that I get to run into a Venus Blue Jeans cosplayer, because we will marry in the springtime. Like,
see, here was me thinking, perhaps heteronormatively, that you'd go for Rogue because, you know, kind of surly, a little bit, you know, not much of a talker, lets all his mates do everything.
I love a goofy dude who's a little fruity. So okay, if we're gonna go for the like stoic buff type, then specifically Simon Bisley's Slain is on there. But here's the bad part. I actually had to do a call with Simon last night because I go to conventions and do things with him at his table. And I told him that his Slain was going to be on the list. And he was like, you know, that was based off of me when I was young, right? And I was like, oh, God. Help. Going very poorly for me right now.
Well, I mean, I can understand that because it's not just he does him quite muscly and everything. There's a petulance. There's like a little wry smile with his Slain. Yeah.
Which that's what does it for me. This is a subjective list, okay? Get off my back. It's like all of my male choices are like dudes that are a little cheeky, and all of my female choices are like hardened bitches. Again, telling on myself. I know we kind of are starting to run out of time, but I will tell you the Devil in Maw is on there because, I'm sorry, he's a bodybuilder and he's somewhere between Freddie Mercury and Terry Thomas. And how can you not? I'm sorry. I'm here for it. Young Hershey is there. Because we are always here for Louise Brooks' haircut. I know what I like. shush. Durham Red is obviously on there because how can you not like the post-punk femme fatale? Like that, I don't know a single person who has properly read a Durham Red story and not been like, yeah, her. You know? But I have one last curveball for you, which when telling somebody about this, they were like, "That's upsetting. Please seek help." And that is specifically Chris Weston's Tharg. For those who can't see what's happening right now, Mulcher has taken off his glasses and is exhaustedly rubbing his face.
Tharg is going to be unbearable now, and he normally is unbearable.
Okay, but similarly to the Henry Flint Midface, like Weston doing Tharg, I was like, that's unfair.
He does do him with a certain kind of beefy kind of presence,
beefy cheekiness.
Yeah,
beefy cheek. We're coining phrases. We now have a term for these things. But that's my list.
That's your list.
I would actually love to hear. I know there have been kind of discussions like this on the 2000 AD message boards in the past, but I would love for listeners to comment on their own choices. I would love to hear if there is anybody else who's like, yeah, let me tell you, I also had upsetting feelings about Midface, because I would at least not feel so alone.
I mean, you'll basically be talking to an entire generation who were ruined by Brian Bolland on either Hershey or Anderson. In the 1980s. So amazing. Right, we have run out of time now. Please do comment on YouTube and on your favorite podcast app. And it's the 2000 AD forum. We're on Blue Sky. We're on Twitter. And we're on Facebook. About your top list. Keep it tasteful, but your top list of 2000 AD's hottest characters. As I said, download the 2000 AD app. Subscribe. You know what? We could do another 10 minutes on. I think Sid actually in the out needs to be on that list.
I can see it.
Something, but yeah. Anyway, but yes, this has been In Orbit every Wednesday. She's been Chloe. I've been Molch-R. Thank you very much for listening. Enjoy another thrill-powered week, and until next time, Earthlets, like and subscribe, and Splundig Verthrig.
See you next week.
Get 2000 AD now. Get to
Well, thanks for joining us on In Orbit every Wednesday, Earthlets. Make sure you like and subscribe, and go along to 2000 AD, where you'll be able to subscribe to 2000 AD and the Judge Dredd magazine. Sign up to our newsletter, and you'll get hundreds of pages of free comics to download. And download the app for your Apple and Android devices. Now, don't forget, Earthlets, this is the 2000 AD universe. We just live in it.